Hi guys, Nigel here with you again, back after the lovely sunny bank holiday. We had a good holiday. Beautiful day today as well. Apparently the weather's turning tomorrow though, so there's my weather report for today. So we are part 13 already, unlucky for some, and we're now going to be looking at just getting accessories and stuff bolted to the engine, nothing too technical. Fuel injectors, I'll do a bit of technical stuff on that, but that's about it really. So basically it's just going to be about bolting stuff on. The first thing I'm going to show you is the accessory bracket. I think they call it the accessory drive component bracket, which goes on the front of the engine. It's like a Land Rover add-on thing. It's about £200, so I managed to sort of strip mine, give it a good old clean up and paint it and everything. All the bearings were fine, but the bearings can be pressed out, and I'll show you how to do it. So without further ado, let's get to the bench. Right, so this is the part I'm talking about. Big lump of cast steel or whatever it is. I think it's cast steel. And it's got a few pulleys and bearings bolted to it. So you've got this pulley here, and you've got this main pulley here, which is, and this large thread on the front. This is where the viscous fan goes on. Now this you buy as an assembly. It's about £200, as I say. But if one of these bearings goes, like if this bearing in this pulley goes here, this pulley is the same as the one that goes on the front of the aluminium drive over here, and you can buy that separately. So you can buy it and then just take the bolt out, turn it around, because that pulley goes over here and it's the same one. So don't be caught out by that one. This one here, there's a bearing in there which is kind of pressed in and then peened. You could cut the peening back and replace the bearing if you wanted to. If I think of it, I'll put a picture up, as I did take a photograph of the bearing. I didn't take it out because it's absolutely fine. But what you've got on here is you've got this main shaft here that goes through this pulley, and it's pressed on. This is pressed onto there, so you have to press that out of there. And the actual shaft itself is also pressed into the bearing. And then the back of here, there's a tin plate cover that goes in. And what you can do is there's like a 8mm hole. You can just go through and bash that out. But it's sacrificial. You're obviously not supposed to take it apart, so you just press all that out, and then you're left with this piece here with the bearing in. You've got this piece here which comes off, and you've got the shaft, and then you can just what I've done here, I've just turned up a nylon bung which goes in, and it's slightly, what it is, you've got the diameter here and then it's undercut, so just measure that, make it slightly bigger, and then just tap it in. It's only a dust cover. You could make it out of a sheet of plastic or something. It's just a dust cover. So that's what I've done there. So that's saved me £200. The other thing I wanted to do, I just wanted to paint it and make it look nice, because it was just from the factory. It's unpainted. It's just rusts. And again, if I can think, I'll put a picture of it now of what it looks like, or how it looked, should I say. And I wanted to paint it. If I just masked around there and painted it, the rust would just come back under it anyway. So I thought I'd strip it down, have a look, and see where we go. So that's going to get bolted to the front of the engine now with 3 M10 bolts, and they're done up to 48 Newton meters. Again, the manual says about an M8 bolt over here. That's a load of crap, because it's basically an aluminium bracket that the spare steering pump goes to, which isn't fitted to the engine yet. So again, this manual is junk. It's absolute junk. So there we go. And there we have it, guys. There it is, bolted onto the front of the engine. Now, I've got some good news. Bad news for me, good news for you. If you listen, that bearing's making a noise that I don't like. So I think while the engine's out and everything, I'm going to change that bearing. So the good news for you is you get to see how I do it. Now, I've just been online and bought the bearing. It was £39 with the VAT and everything. So it's a lot better than paying the 200 odd pounds for the bracket from Land Rover. So I'll be showing you how I change that, and it's not going to be too difficult. So there we go. So I'm going to take that off again now, and then as soon as the bearing comes, we'll strip it all down and replace it. But leave it till the new bearing comes, just to make sure, just in case the new bearing's not the right one, and then we'll go from there. Right, so now that's now we know that bearing's shot and that's got to be done. Let's move on to the fuel injectors. Now these obviously are diesel injectors. They look nothing like petrol injectors. They're much bigger, and they work at a much higher pressure, sort of 1600 bar, which is up to 2000 bar, which is like what's that, 28,000 psi. It's huge numbers. I used to work for a company that makes fuel injection systems, Delphi, and I can tell you that some of the tolerances in here are just crazy, less than half a micron in some instances. So These are a very, very specialised item and are hence very expensive. These are actually Denso, so not sure where they're made, but you know, probably made all over the world. But so the first thing to remember when you take your engine apart is these all have a barcode or a DMC on them. You can see there a dot matrix code, and basically that is actually dialed into the ECU. So the ECU knows that this injector was in number 2 cylinder. For example, you can see I've got 2 cable ties on there. Don't just mark it with dots like I've done there, because they will easily rub off. As you can see, one wipe and they're gone. You need to mark it, you know, physically with cable ties or something around here or around there, and make sure that they don't come off. You cannot afford to mix these up. If you do, you're going to have to go in and have your remap done or something. About, I don't know how they reprogram it. And the other thing is, if you put them in and then you find that you've done it wrong, it's not just a case of being able to swap them around until you get the right combination, because you've got these bolts that hold them in, and they're like 2-use only bolts. You can see they're very special. They're probably quite expensive. So it's better just to make sure you number them before you take them out, and then they go back in the same place, and then you won't get any fault codes. So that's the best thing to do. The ends of them get really coked up with carbon. What I've done there, I've used Mr. Muscle oven cleaner for removing the carbon off the ends. Just let it soak for a few minutes, wipe it off with a rag. I've gone round here, scraped out the rubbish from around here. You can go in here with a wire brush. Do not touch the ends with a wire brush or anything abrasive. I can't show you on here, you won't be able to see them. Where is the lens? It's up here. There are about 8 or 10 holes around there, and they're probably around about 50-60 microns in diameter. Don't try prodding them with anything. Don't do anything to them. You can give them a gentle blow off. But what I've done with these, oven cleaner, cleaned them off with a rag, and then I've dipped them in diesel, just to sort of, you know, neutralise any oven cleaner that's there. So, and it's only basically the tips that I've done. This here was wire brush, that's all okay. Make sure this area here is all clean. That's where your copper seat's going to go, your seating washer. And also this area here, you can see this polished ring. That's where the upper seal goes. And we can see on this one, remember I said I had one leaking, we've actually got corrosion on there, which I've Scotch-Brighted out. So I'm going to put some grease around that before it goes in. In fact, I'll probably put grease on all of them. So there we go, that's the main thing. Make sure you number them. I can't stress that firmly enough. Clean them. Don't use anything abrasive on these tips. If you drop them, they're scrap. Don't do anything to these at all. Just wipe them with a rag, maybe blow them off, dip them in diesel, job done. These are the copper rings that come out. These washers they're not the cheapest, but it makes sense to replace them because they deform. If you look at this one, if I can show you close up, be able to see on there they deform, and when you put it back together, you're asking them to deform again. It's just not worth the risk. If you do have your engine blowing loads of oil out, that's the first thing to check. People will say, oh, your rings are gone, you've got loads of crankcase compression, blah blah blah. That's the first thing to check, is those there. So I've got these here which are L-ring. There's many different makes about. Be very careful. Some these gasket manufacturers or seal manufacturers, they'll make them out of steel and then copper plate them just to get your money. So you can see these are not magnetic. So be very careful of that. Some of these so-say copper seals you buy these days are actually steel. They're actually steel. They don't work. They're too hard. They don't deform that they're supposed to. And what's worse is if you torque these down with a steel washer under, you'll probably damage the head. So make sure you buy decent quality ones. Price varies massively on these. You can pay like £15 each, you can pay 38 pence each, sort of thing. So just make sure you get the right ones. These are the All Makes brand, and they're L-ring, so that's the original manufacturer. It's made in Germany, so I know that's going to be a good part. So basically fitting them in is going to be a little trick to that, which I'll show you, and then we'll get the injectors in and we'll get them clamped down. Okay, so when it comes to putting the injectors in, a few little bits and pieces. Oh, one thing, I've put the fuel rail on and left the bolts. The bolts are just finger tight so that the fuel rail can move, so that when we put the unions on, nothing's under stress. And I've put a piece of masking tape over each bolt head just to remind me that I have actually left them loose. These bits of paper towel are just basically keeping debris and stuff from inside the cam area, if you like. So they can come out. I have gone in here with an airline and just quickly blown down through, but I did all that before the cover went on to make sure everything was clean. Have a look at the seats down at the bottom. They need to be spotlessly clean, otherwise the your new washers won't seat. Now obviously these washers fit onto your injectors like this, okay? Now there's always a risk that when you push them in they could fall off. So the thing to do is come up with a cunning idea like I've done here. And what I've got here is a paintbrush. So I'm going to put the washer up over the top, okay, and hold the washer up on the top, and then I can put the paintbrush down inside the hole in the bore and then push the washer off, he says, and it drops down into the bottom of the bore, and then we know it's in there. The problem is you don't know if it's dropped off halfway down and stuck to the side or something if you put it on the injector. So just to make sure, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to put this one down in here and drop that one down. This one here. Drop that one down. And then finally, number 4, we can just drop that one down. And that way we know we're not going to fall off. Now I did notice then it was probably tight enough that it wouldn't have come off, so we could have probably got away with it. So anyway, these are going to go down in now. So this end's going to go down into that washer. It's going to seal on here, so we need to make sure that face is lovely and clean. We'll just give it another wipe with a rag and just make sure everything's nice and clean. There we go. Okay, and then we can drop this in, making sure that our fuel line is facing forward. Okay, so that's going to drop down through there, through the seal, and then you'll feel it go into the cylinder, and then just give it a little push down. Don't pull it up in case the washer falls off. So that's that one in. Then we've got number 2. Again, I'm going to clean the bottom off. Make sure it's all going to seat. You can also see I've used masking tape on here to cover up the threads. That's because all my plastic plugs have all been used, and I don't want to risk getting any debris whatsoever inside these things. These things need to be cleaner than cleaner than a newborn baby's milk bowl. They need to be absolutely spotless. Go down in there. And then number 4. Put that in like that. There we go. So they're all in now. Job done. Then we've got these brackets that go on the top. I am just going to put it's got these brackets that go on. I've marked them 3 and 4 so they go back the same. Now I have put a tiny drop of oil on the threads. So that's going to go down. He says I'm not sure how you're supposed to get these on now. This is like a Rubik's Cube. Maybe I can turn it. Maybe if I turn the injector slightly, so the connector's not in the way, and then turn it back. Maybe that works. Lift that bracket up. There we go. So if I turn this one and have it facing away, put some oil in that little pocket. That makes life a lot easier, doesn't it? And then we just hold that up and turn the injector back around. Like so. Just make sure everything is nice and seated. Yes. There we go. And then you've got these bolts that go in the top. And these have got a specific tightening sequence. Push them down through. You go down through the seals. And then thread into there. And I'll check all the torque values and everything, and then I'll come back. Just looking at this design, guys, and I'm going to step away from the manual here, because what I'm telling you to do is actually clamp these injectors down. But if you look, you've got a fair amount of movement on the fittings. So I think the best thing to do is just do these bolts up finger tight so they're down, okay? So they can't move vertically, but they can move radially. And then we're going to fit our fuel pipes and kind of just do everything up finger tight so that everything is kind of in place. Because if this injector wants to be right over this way hard and you fit it that way hard, the cone on the fuel pipe isn't going to go back in the same. So I think what I'll do is leave these fuel injectors loose so they've got a bit of movement in them. Maybe just give those bolts a tiny little tweak so we can still there we go. So they're kind of clamped down, but they're not, if you know what I mean. They're going to pull down a few thou because the copper washers are going to crush, but that's not going to make much difference. And what we'll do is we'll clamp them down and then we'll tighten all the fuel pipes up. I want to refer back to the manual a second, so let me move the camera back to the screen. Okay, so here we are. This is page 434 of the manual, and it's telling us here, you can see there's that bolt I just pointed out. You've got the clamps there. Install them, do the bolt to 4 pounds-feet and then 180 degrees. Okay, then it's saying to fit the spill rail. Okay, but all of a sudden the wires have appeared. And then they're telling you to fit the fuel lines, and you carry on through, and there's all sorts of different bits and pieces you do. But here, if you notice here, there's the fuel feed line coming from the pump. It suddenly appeared, and nowhere in the manual does it tell you to put it in. And it looks like it may be very difficult to fit once you've got these pipes in. So you need to really have your wits about you with this manual, guys. Really look at what you're doing and look at what they're telling you to do. Because it's just, you know, all of a sudden now the wiring harnesses appear. Where's the rest of it going to go, you know? And you've still got a load of ancillaries to go on yet, so the wiring harness could well get in your way. Okay, so there's the fuel pipes on. Now these are the original fuel pipes. I know the manual tells you should replace them, but again, the transit boys just use them, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. All the fittings are clean, they're spotless, all cleaned off with brake cleaner. All the pipes have been blown out. So we've got the main feed pipe there, that's gone in. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and as you can see I numbered them all here before I took them off, just to make sure they went back in the right place. Just to show you this with the having the injectors loose, it works, because if I pull that injector that way, so I pull that towards me, I can do that nut up, and then if I waggle it about, you can see how much more I can get that to go down. So if I had clamped it like that, I would now be pulling that pipe to one side when I do it up. So what I'm able to do is do this as I do the pipes up, waggle it from side to side, and then I know that everything is beautifully seated. So now we can go on and get the injectors pulled down. Okay, so the manual spec for this is 4 pounds-feet, which is nothing. Or 4 newton meters, is it? 6 newton meters, 4 pounds-feet. So that is like nothing. Okay, and then 180 degrees. So for 180 degrees, we don't need our angle gauge. We can just go like that. And then from there, if I stand dead opposite, like that, and that doesn't feel very tight at all, but obviously it's tight enough. So there we go. I guess they are only little M6 bolts. So that's them pulled down. They're all nice and solid. So now we need to torque these up. Okay, so now it comes time to tighten all these unions down. And because they're unions, we can't actually get a normal socket over the pipe. So because the pipe's in the way. So we've got to use this thing here. And to the less experienced, this is called a crow's foot. Now, when you fit this onto your torque wrench, there's a calculation you need to do. If you have the crow's foot at 90 degrees, like so, then you can use the same torque setting as they're giving you for the whatever it is you're tightening up. But if you're going to use the crow's foot like this, okay, or like this, or like this, then you need to do a calculation on how to use it. So first thing you need to do, grab a tape measure and measure the torque wrench to a known point on this end from the center. So just check you are in frame. Yes, you are. So I always start at 100, never use the end of a tape measure. Okay, so to the back of that orange ring there, we've got 280 millimeters. Okay, so write that down. Where's my pen gone? Here it is. Write that down. We've got 280. And then the length of the actual crow's foot to the center of the bolt, I've already measured this, is actually 25 millimeters. Okay, so that's 25. So if we call that A and we call that B, okay, then we can basically take, A over A plus B, okay, and that is your calculation. Now, if we know that it's 35 Newton meters, we've got 35, okay, times equals, okay, so if we go A plus B, that's 200, if we call it centimeters, that's 28 and 2.5. So if we go 28 plus 2.5, that's 30.5. So we go 28 divided by 30.5 equals 0.91 times 35 equals 32.1. 32.13. So basically, if I have the crow's foot in the torque wrench set like that, so if you like, I'm extending the torque wrench by 25 millimeters. I need to set it for 35 Newton meters here. I need to set the torque wrench to 32. If I'm using it back here, okay, then I would do it, it'd be 35 times A over A minus B equals, so that would now be 28, which is our length A, okay, divided by 28 minus 2.5, which is 25.5, equals that, times 35 equals 38.43. Okay, so if we're going to use the torque wrench back here, it's going to be 38. If it's going to be out here, it's 32, and if it's there, it's 35. So you could effectively go, if it's there, 36, 37, and if you're kind of there, go 33. And that's roughly how you do it. So wherever you can, use it straight, or use it at 90 degrees, should I say, and then you can just use the standard spec. So I'm going to get those torqued down now, and I'll let you see me do it. Okay, so there's a sequence this is done in. You do these four first, okay, then you do this one, the fuel pump, and then you tighten up the fuel rail, and then you go across those. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Now, straight away I'm having to use a calculation, so I'm having to use the torque wrench like this because I need to get onto those nuts there. So that's going to be, as we said, 32.1, so 32 and a bit, there we go. So I can come along now, come onto these, with the crow's foot, and torque them up. It's that one. It's that one. That one. And that one done. And they're going to come down to the fuel pump, which I don't think you can see. Hit the camera then. So there we go. So that's that all done. So now we've got to put those pipe clips on when we're ready. Doesn't need to be done straight away. So I'm going to pull that pipe back a bit because it's just gone over a touch. So that's that. So now we need to torque down the fuel rail, and that is 23 Newton meters. And I'm going to move the engine out so you can see what I'm doing. There we go, you can see what I'm doing better now. Take that tape off that I put on to remind me to do them up. So this is these are T40. thing. There we go. Let me go back to our crow's foot and I can try and get the same straight angle on there again, and that will give me the same 32 Newton meters. 32 and a bit. Okay, so I can come right to there. It's that one. It's that one. It's that one. And that's those all done. So now, if you didn't know before, now you know how to use a crow's foot. Next thing, now we're going to fit the spill rail. Okay, so there's the spill rail on. There's me knocking the manual all the time. The manual tells you to put the spill rail on before you fit the fuel pipes. I should have done it because I've just had to play Rubik's Cube and work out how on earth it threads in and everything. So basically that's the way to do it. So I'm going to take these bits of tape off now, which have been covering up the injectors. And then on the end of here we've got low rings. Okay, so they're just going to press down into there. Just like so. In fact, what I'm going to do is grab a bit of diesel. I think just so that I can... Actually, there's diesel on those bores, so they should be okay. Just to push in and clip on. They do tell you to replace the O-rings, but they look absolutely fine. And I've done lots of fuel injectors on cars, petrol, never replaced the O-rings. They've always been absolutely fine. Okay, so there we go. So that's that done. Just going to mop up my little spills from the spill rail. Okay, and then we've got this end here is going to attach onto there. That's going to be a push fit. I'm going to get some brake cleaner or a rag and just wipe away any glue residue or anything. So that's nice and clean. Dry it off. Give it a few seconds just to dry out. And then we can push that one over, push in the clip, and that one's on. So that's this one here, this end. Yeah, I'm going to leave that one off because then we can get it out of the way when we put the inlet manifold on, rather than have it connected now. So I'm going to go on now and connect up this this pipe clip, and we'll go from there. Okay then, I've just looked in the manual. It says the next thing to do is connect the wiring loom to the glow plugs, but at no point it's told us to put the glow plugs in. So well, I've got the old glow plugs here. Clean the ends off. Quick clean off with some brake cleaner and stuff, and I actually numbered them when I took them out. I've put a very small, I don't know if you can see it there, there's a very small smear of copper grease on the threads there. Clean the ends up with a wire brush just to clean them up, and they're going to go into there, and you can see how these pipes are going to get in the way. There's one. There's two. 3 and 4. Wind these in with a socket. If you're doing this and you feel any resistance, come out and check the threads and stuff, because the last thing you want to do is go breaking one off or messing up the thread in the head. Yeah, it's a major issue if you do that. In fact, if you are stripping your engine for rebuilding, it's like 100,000 miles or whatever, perhaps just leave them alone, leave them in there, don't take them out. So these are going to be torqued up to, as I say, 13 Newton meters. Which feels like nothing, but the reason being is the it's a fine thread in aluminium. It sort of tightens itself up, if you like. The bloody bolt's right in the way. There we go. Take the torque wrench off first. My voice is going, I think. There we go, that's them all done. So next thing I'll do now is get the wiring loom on. So these tiny little nuts have got to come off the ends. I think they're like 7mm. Just going to give them a little turn just to make sure they're all finger tight. That's great. And then we can look at getting the wiring harness on. I'm going to call that a day for this video because, as you can probably tell, we've got half term and that going on. So, and I also want to clean the wiring loom up before I put it on. So I want to get the wiring loom on now, as they say, because it could be that cables have to go down behind the manifold and stuff. I'll check, and but I want to make sure that I do it sort of as they say, and if it's wrong I can blame them, not me, like I did with the spool rail. So I'll see you all for the next one. Don't know when it's going to be, but as we can see, it's starting to look more and more like an engine now, rather than a block on a stand. And as I say, we've got this new bearing coming. Yeah, that is noisy. Got the new bearing coming for that, so we'll get that little bit of machining done and stuff, and I'll show you how I do that, and then we'll go from there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.